These are some unedited JPEG images I shot with the Nikon Zf and the new in-camera film grain feature. I even had a go at making some of my own film-inspired recipes and combining that with some vintage lenses. I recently revisited this camera in the new silver color with the major firmware version 3 update. It's been about 2 years since my initial review on this camera when it was first released, so it's great to see the continued support and improvement. As you may remember if you watched that video, I was a big fan of the classic Nikon F inspired design and manual dials, and now with the added silver option and firmware update, it feels like Nikon has further embraced the film heritage and made this camera even better. Which is nice to see because not every brand would support with major updates this far down the track. If you're new here, welcome, I'm Hesham and thanks for joining. I love shooting film as much as possible, but also rely on digital photography. I'm sure many of you watching are the same. But when I shoot digital, it often feels too clinical, especially when doing so for work. Cameras like the ZF make the experience more enjoyable and encourage me to interact less with the screen, thanks to all the physical controls. It's also a great camera for adapting a wide variety of vintage and manual focus lenses because of the flexible Z mount with its short flange distance. And now this new firmware makes that easier with enhancements to the manual focus features, as well as a bunch of other general improvements that you could read about on the website if you like. But the update I was most interested in is the film grain feature. In my initial review, I had hoped that the customization features would continue to improve, and adding this is a big move in that direction. We've also seen improvement to the Nikon imaging cloud and a growing number of film-inspired recipes available online. But in my opinion, these always looked a little bit incomplete without the ability to add grain. It may seem like a minor thing, but having that little bit of texture in your image can really be the final touch, which, for me at least, gives me JPEGs that I'm happy to use straight out of the camera. Of course, it's not like actually shooting film, but it's not meant to be. This is a way of taking that digital, clean edge off your image, something I often do by adding grain to my RAW files in Lightroom. The V3 update allows you to add grain in 3 different sizes and 6 levels of intensity. And the beauty is that this grain will be generated differently for every shot, which makes the results a little bit more organic. This firmware update is available for any ZF, by the way, not just the silver version. So with this, you get a lot of control over adding the amount of texture you want. I found myself using the small grain size with intensity level of 2 or 3. But you could crank it up to give you something akin to a high-speed film like Delta 3200 if you like. As you'd hope, this feature can be combined with the picture controls and the imaging recipes. You guys might know I'm a fan of that black and white switch on this camera and the built-in monochrome profile. This time around, I gave some recipes a try from the Nikon imaging cloud. And there are some pretty cool ones out there that combine really well with the film grain feature. To take things a step further, I thought I'd create my own recipes using the Nikon NX Studio software. This gives you a lot more control than you would when creating recipes for other systems because it allows you to really tweak everything, including the hue, saturation, and lightness of specific colors. I created a profile inspired by slightly pushed color negative film, which I of course called pushing film. I loaded this onto the camera easily using Nikon Imaging Cloud and ended up using it for the majority of color images you're seeing in this video. I still shot RAWs as well as backups, but had plenty of photos that I could send directly to friends or share online without needing any editing. I then created some variations, including one called pulling film, and I still feel like I didn't fully explore the full potential in this department. So what does all of this amount to? An enjoyable user experience. That's something that really matters to me. I love the design, the controls, the full frame sensor with the ability to adapt so many lenses at their native focal lengths. I once again adapted some vintage F mount lenses, even M mount lenses. You have a multitude of native Z mount options available, including third-party manual focus lenses, so it can be a great setup for anything from street photography to portrait work to everyday outings with friends and family. Having photos like this that I can share without any editing reminds me of shooting film. I'll always still shoot film when I can afford to and it suits the situation, but it feels great to use a digital option that brings more of that experience. Sure, there's a new color, but more importantly, there's continued support and an improved experience. In conclusion, I think a growing number of people want to customize their results and experience in photography. They want to make something that's uniquely theirs, and it seems like Nikon recognizes that when looking at the trajectory of the ZF. This camera has enjoyed a popular run ever since it launched, and I think it'll remain popular for some time, because there's nothing quite like it on the market, and it gives me encouragement for the possibility of continued support and maybe even some future launches with the same philosophy. If you'd like to watch my original deep dive on this camera, I'll link that video here. And if you want more information on the latest ZF updates and options, I'll put a link to the Nikon website in the video description. So I'd like to end by saying thank you for watching, and thanks to Nikon Australia for sending me the latest silver color in the ZF to try out. And I'd love to hear what you think about this new release, the new firmware, and the idea of adding film grain to your digital images, whether that's in camera or otherwise. I'll see you next time.